What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so yesterday, of course, we saw in Game 7 of the last remaining semifinal series, Western Conference, Game 7 between the 68-win OKC Thunder and the, I think they were the 4th-seeded Nuggets, I believe they were. I forgot how many games they won. Was it 52 or something like that? But anyway. Of course, it was 2 years ago when the Nuggets won the championship, the first ever franchise championship in the NBA. And the game started off competitive. As a matter of fact, it looked like the Nuggets may be able to pull off an improbable win at OKC. But ultimately, the injury to Aaron Gordon, and the death, versatility and intensity of the OKC Thunder overwhelmed the Nuggets in a blowout victory at home. And they will go on to play against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the 2025 Western Conference Finals. The YNs have officially taken over the NBA. So look, Aaron Gordon, I really don't want to do this video because I know Aaron Gordon is frustrated because he probably in his mind feels as if though if he was 100% healthy, even though the game was a 32-point blowout, I believe it was, I think in his mind he feels as though if they were healthy or if he was healthy, maybe the outcome of the game would have been differently. I beg to differ, but his frustration showed. And he said that the NBA needs to consider spacing out these games more to the point where they have 2 days of rest versus every other day.
Health is a lot, I would really, really appreciate it if there were a couple of days in between games in the playoffs instead of every other day. Regardless if you go 7 games. I understand if you do your work early and you get first seed, then you can have some time off. But I think the days in between games, not just off day and a travel day, but a travel day and a recovery day, just two days. I think the product of the game would be a lot better. I think there'd be just a better product on the floor, just to give all these professional athletes just one more day of rest. And you would see a higher level of basketball, probably less blowouts.
I see some people saying, look, people like myself, we're not professional athletes. We don't know what it's like to go out there and perform. So who cares what we think? Maybe there's some truth to that. But I do know this. Never in the history of the NBA has the league coddled more to players than they do in this player, this player friendly era, right? I've done videos, and I think I'm gonna upload a video today. I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna re-upload a video that I uploaded last year, maybe 2 years ago. And I'm going to give you an example of how much more condensed the schedule used to be back when Bill Russell or when Wilt Chamberlain played compared to today. The season would start in November, and the league was playing for the championship, I think in late March, early April. The schedule was so much more condensed back in the 60s and 70s. As a matter of fact, when I was growing up as a teenager, I remember as late as 1996. Now, it may have happened again later. It may have happened afterward, even later than this. But I definitely remember as late as 1996, the Bulls and Knicks were playing back-to-back playoff games. I distinctly remember them playing, I believe it was a game 3 on a Saturday and game 4 on a Sunday. They played back-to-back playoff games. Now you talk about travel, but teams have private planes, private jets. Back in the day, these players was flying commercial, and they might have a day between games, maybe 2, but the rigors of the season was so much more harsh for the players of the past. So it's just hard for me to feel empathy and sorry for these guys. Now, I'm sorry that Aaron Gordon got hurt. And I understand Tatum got hurt, and I understand there's been a lot of freak accidents. But, you could chop it up to a lot of different things as to why these players are getting hurt more often. Some of it is these players are not taking preseason seriously. A lot of these guys are getting out of shape during the offseason and not preparing themselves physically for the rigors of an NBA season, and they continually get hurt during the season, i.e. Zion Williamson. Some of it is, honestly, a lot of these guys don't wear the proper footwear. Charles Oakley made this point. These guys are wearing a lot of low-top shoes, when in reality, back in the day, these guys, wore high-top shoes. And they tried to do everything they could as far as protecting their ankles or, the lower part of their legs, sleeves, calf sleeves, whatever. Now, some of it also is the way the game is played. I think some of it is the way the game is played. These guys make a lot of cuts and, a lot of sudden movements as far as stopping and starting with movements, and they play defense with their legs, and they move a lot they move laterally, and I get all of that, right? There's some of it, but a lot of this stuff is just, I'm sorry, injuries occur. Injuries are part of basketball. Injuries are part of sports. And there's nothing that you can do that's going to stop it. But I think a lot of it is these guys just are not as physically prepared for the season. And you could also make an argument that these players are a little too heavy. Now, I know you'll be like, well, wait a minute. We don't have those big bulking Shaq centers anymore. But if you look at the power forwards of the 70s, right? Who were the power forwards of the 70s? Bob McAdoo, right? Elvin Hayes. Bob McAdoo was what, 215? Elvin Hayes was what, 235, 230? Robert Parrish was a center. How much did he weigh? 235? Akeem Olajuwon, how much did he weigh? I think at his heaviest, 255, slimmed down, he became a Muslim to like 235, 240, right? Moses Malone was considered huge. He was 260, 265. So a lot of it has to do with these guys carrying a little bit too much weight. Plus, I don't want to go there, but there's also the suspicion of other things that these guys are involved in. So no, I'm not one of these guys that want to hear about the schedule. The NBA has done enough. These guys get an entire week off at All-Star game. It used to be a couple of days. They don't play back-to-back playoff games anymore like they did when I was growing up. These guys play the fewest amount of back-to-backs in the history of the league. When Wilt and Bill Russell was playing, these guys was playing like between 25 and almost 40 back-to-backs during the year. Matter of fact, Sometimes they're playing 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row. So I don't want to hear this shit about, too many minutes. It's bull. Those guys was playing 40-some minutes a night sometimes. So it's just hard for me to feel this empathy. Now all of a sudden I'm hearing these guys talking about, or some of the fans, or some of the Nuggets fans in particular, they need to shorten the season to 62 games. Okay, well, can they shorten the contracts too? If the season is going to be shortened by 20 games, can the contracts be shortened by 25%? No, you won't want that. The fuck out of here, man. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. All the excuses, man. They lost. I'm going to tell you another thing that they're hinting at, too. The Nuggets are kind of hinting at, and some of these older established teams are kind of hinting at the schedule being favorable to young players. That's what they're trying to say, but not saying it. They're trying to say the schedule is helping out the younger teams. But you know why? Because when you look at it, it's not being said out loud, but that's what these guys are thinking. When you look at the teams that have advanced, they're all the younger teams of the NBA. The Timberwolves, the Thunder, the Pacers, the Knicks, the younger teams of the NBA. And that's what they're thinking. They're thinking like, oh, they're only getting by because they got younger legs. But what's the word I'm looking for? But if their advantage was taken away, as far as their ability to recover faster was taken away by giving us more time to recover, then, you know what I'm saying, it'll be a much fairer competition. And as he put it, with a better brand of basketball. We take the advantage away from the young players as far as their younger legs recuperating. That's what he kind of saying too with this, I think. But nope. That's, honestly, that's why, back in the day, a long career in the NBA was 14, 15, 16 seasons. Because basketball is really supposed to be a young man's game. 34 and 35 was old. But, I don't want to hear that shit, man. If you're too old, or if the game is too physically demanding for you to play every other day, then maybe you shouldn't be in the NBA. Maybe LeBron James should be out in the league. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, come on, man. I watched the Chicago Bulls, who were the oldest championship team in the history of the league, go out there and compete against players and teams that were a full decade younger than them on average and beat them. And yeah, the 98 Bulls team was old, and they did at times look their age, but they went out there and did what they had to do. And you can't tell me that the Nuggets were any more tired than the Bulls. The Bulls, oldest team in history of the NBA, played a grueling 7-game series, just barely beat the Pacers. Karl Malone and them had over a week of rest because they swept the pre-dynasty Shaq and Kobe Lakers in 98 conference finals. Everybody thought that the Bulls were going to lose, but the Bulls went on to win that series. Now, I'm going to tell you another thing, too, before I end this video, because I got a lot of things I want to get off my chest here. I remember players complaining about having too much time off. So make up your fucking mind. Because I remember players saying, well, when you have too many days off, it messes up your rhythm. As we saw with the Minnesota Timberwolves, when they had an exorbitant amount of time off when they beat the Lakers in the first round, and then they lost the first game to the Warriors, even without Steph Curry playing for much of that game. You know what I'm saying? After the injury. Matter of fact, we might see that again in game 1, which I think is Wednesday? We might see that in game one because of the Timberwolves being off for so long. So, no, man, no, you can't have all this. Oh, we don't want too many days off, but we also don't want back-to-back games. Make it so that it's just 2 games, and that's right. No, fuck you.